And welcome to our next debate. It's on supply chain challenges and how AI and technology are changing the game. Product design and production cycles are becoming increasingly shorter. The geopolitical uncertainties with tariffs and other events are creating some issues for manufacturers. So how can they navigate these difficult waters intelligently? Here to discuss this, I have Chris Mitchell from IPC. He's the leader of government relations. Next to him, we have Timo Ruben from Luminovo in Germany. Welcome, Timo. And joining us remotely, we have coming in from Supply Chain Resource Group, we have Pete Mikjane. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Pete, but welcome to the show.
Thanks, Trevor. That was right on.
Okay, so we're going to get started straight away, and I'm going to put out my first question. I'll give it to you, Chris, and that is, are tariffs and tariff threats fueling stockpiling in the industry? Are we seeing any evidence of that happening?
You know, I think there's some mixed signals with respect to whether they're stockpiling. Obviously, companies are taking some steps in order to mitigate any harm that might come to them from tariffs. I will say that given the series of announcements that have been made relative to tariffs, I think many companies are, at the very least, taking a stop and wait approach. I think there's harm in overreacting, and so again, I think that there are steps that companies are taking. We on the IPC side are very interested in this question, and so we have begun to survey our members. And again, I think right now the data that we have back is somewhat anecdotal, that some companies are beginning to stockpile, at least in some measure, although I don't know that we've seen it across the board. And again, I think a lot of companies are trying not to overreact based on the last kind of pronouncement being made by the White House.
Yeah, I'd heard some stories about companies looking at stockpiling a little bit, even in the run-up to the incoming administration and before all this tariff stuff started. But it is genuinely an issue. Maybe we can ask Steve from Supply Chain Resource Group. I mean, you're closer to a lot of the manufacturers, actually, operations. Are you seeing this? Are we seeing Steve? There he is.
Pete, yeah, that's
right.
Not
Pete, I'm sorry.
So, the short answer is
sorry.
yeah.
Okay, so let's have your feedback, Pete. Can you tell us, are you seeing any evidence of stockpiling from within the industry to try and avoid or mitigate some of the issues from the tariffs?
Yeah, there's really two routes that we're seeing. What we're thinking about here, Trevor, is for us, when the companies that we're working with are looking to transfer a production line from one geography to the next. They're trying to mitigate the risk. They are in China. They're looking to do China +1. They're looking to add an additional, factory or an additional production line in India or Malaysia or Taiwan or Vietnam. The standard playbook for that production transfer process is to stockpile product with your current vendors, with your current production line, so you have product to sell when that new line is coming on board. So that's the one route. The other route that we're seeing is, when these companies are anticipating these types of potential trade impacts, they're hitting the gas pedal. They're accelerating the purchasing of the current products from the current suppliers to secure the inventory at the current pricing, knowing that the pricing could be increasing. So yeah, we're definitely seeing a good amount of evidence of stockpiling coming on right now, just to be safe. That they're adding additional, inventory.
Right. Well, a couple of different strategies there. Timon, I mean, what's the situation in Europe? Because Europe's had, quite a rough year.
I was just saying before we started the panel that I was on this EMS leadership panel yesterday at IPC, and was quite surprised because Europe had a very rough year, especially the manufacturing industry and EMS, I think, declined around 15%, first time in many years. that the total revenue went down, and they didn't have to fight yet with tariffs or such things. But generally, despite things here in the US with tariffs, a little bit unpredictability around those topics, the mood seemed much better, actually, talking to the EMS here in the US compared to Europe. So that was, for me, a positive surprise, and I see it, I mean, similar to Chris, that when it comes to tariffs, many people are a little bit on pause and like, look out, haven't overreacted yet, want to see what actually hits them, and aren't too negative about it. Because in the end, I think you also just said that prior to the panel starting, that the demand is ultimately there. Electronics, is the demand for it is increasing.
Yeah. So basically, they're putting it on pause. When in doubt, do nothing, kind of thing. Yeah. All right. So let's move on. So with product design and production cycles becoming shorter, and the geopolitical uncertainties creating these supply chain disruptions, what strategies can manufacturers adopt to remain agile and resilient? Now, Pete has very kindly given us a couple that he's hearing about. What other strategies are you trying to introduce in Europe?
I mean, so we're a digital supply chain platform, and we always say if you want to stabilize your supply chains, there's kind of 3 steps that you need to get right, and that's aggregating data, automating processes, and then collaborating on the things that need human interventions. And I think if you look at right now, a lot of this isn't new. So especially that first step of aggregating all of the data in one place and one tool, be it like a really good ERP setup or a digital tool such as ours. I think that's been a thing for, call it 10 years, where more and more of the supply chain data in electronics is available via API, that you can actually, you have the possibility, if you automate those steps, to get lead time, stock, availability, prices, compliance information, alternatives. There's a lot of data available that you can get in one step. I think what's new and exciting, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this also with your later questions, is that second step, automate. Yep. Because there's already 3 years ago, lots of opportunities to automate, but kind of with what large language models and new developments in AI are bringing to the table, I think people, at least I think generally people are getting really excited about the new opportunities for that second step, automating. But it all rests on a good first step. So if you don't have the right data in place, aggregated in the right way, then neither the human nor the machine can do a really good job at stabilizing those supply chains and making sure that you act proactively.
So basically, making sure you have access to the data, you're gathering the data, and you're having it in such a way that you can act faster and more. Once you start to get more clarity coming into the picture, you're in a position to really move quicker.
Exactly.
Yeah. Would you agree with that, Chris?
Absolutely, and I think Timur's brought it, discussed it in the context of how individual companies are responding. Leading IPC's Global Government Relations Program, we're in conversations with governments about how they can support greater integration of AI and automation across their economies, and especially within our industry. And I think that's where the picture is very mixed, right? I mean, you look at how much automation, how the leveraging of data in relative to the EMS industry, the PCB industry. I mean, there's just a huge chasm. Yeah. And so how do we bridge that? How do governments do a better job of helping to support and facilitate the kind of investments that are necessary in their domestic industries in order to better leverage, support the use of AI and automation? I mean, I look at the integration of AI here in the U.S. in EMS facilities, and I think there's a huge distinction between how successful we've been here in the U.S. and how successful Asia has been. Right. And so again, we have a long way to go. I'm always very interested in trying to understand not just what kind of standards are necessary in order to facilitate greater use of AI and automation across the industry, but also what kind of capital investments are necessary, right? And I think that sometimes there's this inclination to believe that this is all just a matter of the right kind of software, the right kind of internal practices, the right kind of standards. But I think for many companies, especially companies that are using older equipment, there's a challenge in not just how do you make the capital investments, but then also how do you bring into practice the right kind of
I think from when you're looking at it from the governmental level, I mean, I think it's fair to say that they're really still at the beginning of a huge learning curve, which really just started with the CHIPS Act. Before that, they really didn't know what we did. They know what we produced, but they didn't know how we did it. They're still learning, what's really important in that entire supply chain and how to support the industries.
And this is a key piece because as governments around the world seek to revitalize or bolster, strengthen their domestic electronics manufacturing industries, AI automation is a key enabler.
Yeah.
And the question is, how focused are they on that? Do they understand that in many countries, the use of AI and automation is absolutely necessary in order to revitalize these industries because they need to be able to compete in the global marketplace?
Yeah. I mean, Pete, if I can come to you for a minute. I mean, you deal a lot with companies that are Asia-based or have a big footprint in Asia. They're working in larger volumes, so therefore they tend to have more resources to throw at this and have developed very sophisticated AI systems. Would you agree that, I mean, compared to what we've, typically the footprint for most manufacturing here in the US and in parts of Europe has been more small to mid volume. They're not doing the same volumes as they're doing in Asia, but the fact of doing higher volumes in Asia has given them, the incentive and the resources to throw money at it and produce better systems. Do you want to talk to that for a minute?
Yeah, for sure. So the first thing that I think about is Chris and Timon, what you guys are talking about is right on. It's the data, it's the automation, that supply chain visibility, and using AI-driven analytics to monitor the risks, to optimize procurement. This is where the industry is essentially going. If you go backwards, kind of to the more traditional methods, it's multi-sourcing, it's diversifying that supply base amongst different regions globally. So you don't have that dependence, or you're not up at against a wall with one single country. Having modular production lines, there's a change in the product design, you can all of a sudden swap out that one process potentially. Past that, optimizing the inventory, balancing the safety stock for critical components while using just in time for components that are more accessible. That multi-sourcing, that modular, production line, that's pretty cost prohibitive. But the supply chain visibility piece of it is cost effective. It's straightforward. You're using big data, and you can make decisions based off of that.
Yeah, I think supply chain visibility, which is really where you're at, Timon, is critical, and I think it's going to be required by all manufacturers at all levels as in the future if they're going to survive, quite frankly. But as automation and AI become more prevalent, what role does human expertise still play in supply chain decision making? I mean, how can companies balance technological adoption with workforce development? Do you want to start with that one, Chris?
Sure. I would probably leave it to the practitioners who are more rooted in the practice of some of these supply chain decisions. But I would say that it is a misnomer to think that AI is going to substitute for
everything,
for all human decision making, right? That's simply not the case, right? But it certainly aids it, supports it, and so. I'm not concerned, but here's what's exciting, right? Is that as I think about the electronics manufacturing supply chain today, for as much of visibility as we have into that supply chain, I'm always struck by how much, in some ways, ignorance we have about the supply chain as well, right? I mean, I have never seen there are some companies have great command of their supply chains. But it's interesting as we, on the IPC side, respond to regulatory solicitations for information. Oftentimes, it is a struggle to access really good information about the materials, the inputs that go into our manufacturing.
Right.
And to the degree that we can, through AI and through greater data collection, bring greater visibility to these supply chains, I think it's a huge opportunity. And then it only empowers better human decision making.
Right. But I mean, there's the old adage, rubbish in, rubbish out. So you've got to have someone that's somehow casting an eye over to make sure that these decisions are correct and check the veracity of them in some respect. I mean, if I can give you an example, if you're looking at a stencil and say there's a problem in the process, there's probably 10 or 12 different possibilities of what caused that defect to occur. And a seasoned engineer is going to look at that straight away and say, oh yeah, that's the paste has been left out too long, the paste is dry or whatever it is. But trying to build that into an AI model is very, very difficult. But I mean, where do you see the interface of human development with AI systems in the supply chain? Let's get back to talking about the supply chain.
Yeah. I think I can give you a good example. For me, it's a little bit of a Luddite question. This always, will AI replace human decision making? And particularly at the intersection where I am, I'm a software engineer by training, but now basically spend all of my time thinking about supply chains.
Okay.
And it's a little bit funny because software engineering, it's a very human job that over the last 2 decades, humans have flourished, made a lot of money, a lot of more and more humans doing more and more software engineering. And within that profession, people never ask this question. There's constantly new methods of how you make the work of a software engineer more automated, more smarter. That's probably the first area where AI is having a huge impact right now by AI-enabled programming environments. And that question never comes up. People never ask, is like, how is it going to replace the decision making of my software engineer who's doing this? And I think the same thinking should apply to if you think about like a supply manager's job. And I'll do one last software engineer, supply manager analogy maybe to make my point, and that's that in Silicon Valley there's this idea of a 10x software engineer. People are the mythical thing you want to hunt as a startup, as any company. You want to find these guys that are 10 times more impactful than another software engineer, and better pay that guy 2 times the money and get 10 times the impact. And that's the thing. In software engineering, everyone's convinced that those people exist and that because software is scalable, can have really large impact. And on the supply chain manager side, that idea doesn't exist today. So you have, and I mean, we work with a lot of supply chain managers, and these are really smart people that have studied, that are really smart, but they do a lot of manual work today. And because of that, you usually don't have this thing where that one supply chain manager is 10 times better than that other supply chain manager. Maybe the 1B will be a little bit more experienced, less experienced, but you rarely hear people talking about the 10x supply chain manager. And I think that might be about to change. So when it comes to, for me, the question of like, will it replace decision making? I don't think that's the right question to ask per se. I get where it comes from. But I think the interesting thing that might happen now with these new advances, and we're in the early days, I mean, it already feels like it's been a long time now, and the AI hype has been going on forever, but we're still in the early days of seeing what large language models can do for us. Right. And I think what might end up happening is that the people that adopt these tools to augment their personal productivity, their supply chain decisions, might end up being these 10x supply chain managers that are just much, much more productive.
More effective at using.
And I fully agree with you that you're never going to, just like in software engineering, we're never going to get rid of the software engineers, the human aspect. That the same thing is true in supply chain. Obviously, that's in the end, you use AI is just a tool that you use to help make those human decisions.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think you'll still have human involvement, but I mean, I think the automation is going to bring in better quality of data and better quality of results as well. Pete, I mean, what are you seeing out in the field? Is that what is your view on this? They're bringing in, in these larger companies in Asia, they're bringing in a lot more automation. They're using a lot more AI. But are they, so what is the human interface there? I mean, how are they employing the human capital in these environments?
Yeah, for me, what I think about is, specific tools that we could use. And I want to actually give a good real world example that I've seen, how an AI tool has helped companies, mitigate disruptions or optimize logistics. And there are these tools that we can get our hands on today, and they're only as good as the information that we put in. But they'll take data from various sources, like news articles or social media feeds or weather pattern data, and they basically enable the user to make decisions quickly and effectively. So, the example that I think about is there's a natural disaster somewhere. There's a tsunami warning in Japan or in Indonesia, or there's riots in China, for example, or flooding in India. And you've got components that are coming into your facility, and the components that are coming into your facility, those suppliers are in those regions. That AI software would be able to, give you a warning that, hey, there's some potential disruption that could be coming around the corner. And not only does it give you the warning, it goes one step deeper. It's, here are the components that are coming from those regions. Here are the end products that those components are going into. Here's an automated email ready to go to tell your clients that there are some potential disruptions coming, and we need to make some decisions. And at the same time, go a level deeper to say, all right, there's something that could be happening in Japan or Indonesia or wherever it is. And, here are 5 other alternate suppliers that are in different regions. Let's reach out to them. Let's get some pricing going. So, the human interface there is the front end at the top, and then also at the bottom end of, okay, here's the decision matrix. Here's what we could do as, alternate sources. Which one do you want to go forward with? And I don't think you're ever going to get away from, that human interaction, at least not today. But there's
Because
definitely
if to a company like you can walk into some of their places and you'll see a bank of TV screens, and that bank of TV screens might be telling you what the weather patterns are in certain parts of the world. It might be having a news stream running, telling you what's happening, and it'll also have information coming from one of their different factory locations, all literally on a wall. But I mean, there's no single software yet that's doing that. That's looking at all these threats that Pete just mentioned, and or potential threats, and looking at where it's best to source, or what the current real-time situation is with regards to sourcing. Now, you with your software that maybe goes into different component manufacturers and looks at the availability. You're seeing the availability, but you're not seeing necessarily some of the other things that might be affecting that around it. Would that be true?
That's true right now, but I think we'll get there, and that's what I meant before with we're in the early days, because that's a great example that Pete gave of like today, or not today actually anymore, but a few years ago you'd have to have a human read the news all the time. Like that would be like a job. But now you can have that be done by an LLM.
Yeah.
And it's really, I wouldn't say really, but it's somewhat easy to do that from a software perspective. And so it enables a lot of opportunities for a lot of new value propositions around supply chain management to come together over the next months and years that I'm personally very excited about. So today the answer is no, but we'll see what the future holds.
Okay. All right, so we're running short on time here. I'm going to very quickly ask you just to give us a quick look ahead to see what emerging technologies beyond AI you think will be coming down the pipe to affect the industry, such as blockchain, IoT, or digital twins, that type of thing. Any views on that, Chris, or is that sort of a little bit beyond?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of excitement about blockchain, but I would just underscore, I think one of the principal challenges that our industry has, and I think we've all referenced it in some fashion, right? But it's the quality and integrity of the data that we're bringing into these AI models, right?
Yep.
And I think we still have a long way to go as an industry, especially if what we're doing is looking at that data beyond the supply chain of a single company, in order to understand implications that are geopolitical or natural in nature. So again, I think I'd probably leave it there. I mean, blockchain is one of those areas where, again, I think there's huge excitement. We'll see how that plays out. But anything that can help us better track, better understand the data is a really good step in the right direction.
Okay. Over to you, Pete, next. What do you see as being coming down the pipe as future technologies that are going to help manufacturers?
Maybe to kind of double down on that blockchain piece, that's important. So it's interesting to me, every time everyone says blockchain, they go right to like cryptocurrencies. And in reality, it's a decentralized digital ledger. So all that information that's in there is logged, it's tracked, you can't change it. And how do I get there? Where is there's a lot of other tools that would enable you to get in there. Oracle has a blockchain platform that they utilize that anybody can jump onto. But what is it that's really important about it? To me, it's like the supplier verification, and then reducing any type of fraud. So manually today, if we're looking at a supplier in Shenzhen or Suzhou, the way that we do the verification today is we physically audit them. We physically get on a plane, we get our guys to go over there, or we utilize a third party to have their personnel go to the site and physically make sure that they say they have ISO 9001. They do have ISO 9001. They're practicing. They have medical ISO 13485. They are practicing ISO 13485. They say they have this type of equipment on hand. They do actually so the way that we do it today is pretty manual, and it would be good to see the use of blockchain to help with the supplier verification and then the reducing that fraud.
Very difficult to sort of take the human element out of that, actually. If you're to trust a Chinese company who says that they're working to a certain level, you really got to check the veracity of that using a human person. I can't see you automating that easily. Anyway, last word to you, Timon. You're the software engineer here. So what's coming down the pipe in terms of new tools and technologies?
So I'll give you a contrarian answer. So if your question is what emerging technologies beyond AI matter in the next 5 years, then I think the answer is none compared to how much AI is going to matter. I don't think any of the other things matter to a degree that AI will. There is one more, but that's not emerging at all. It's looking a little bit back, an old technology of just like more APIs out there to make that aggregation step even easier. I think that's one that still matters a lot, where even there it's been ongoing for 10 years or longer, but we're still not where we want to be. And so we today have like around 50 APIs from distributors and manufacturers integrated for all of that supply chain data of cost availability, data sheets, all of that stuff. But it's just 50, and we integrate basically everyone that we can integrate, and we're constantly having conversations with more manufacturers and more distributors that are only now going live with basically making their data machine readable via APIs. And I think that's actually still matters a lot, so it's really that thing, which is not emerging at all. That's a very boring thing if you ask any software engineer.
What about quantum computing? Is that not going to enable us to be able to do so much more, so much faster? It's going to change the game in a lot of ways.
It 100% could if it works, but I can make no prediction of whether in the next 5 years that you will notice anything having to do with quantum computing. It could be.
Yeah, it depends who you're listening to. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay. Fascinating discussion, guys. I want to thank you very much for your input. Thank you very much to Pete over there from Supply Chain Resource Group. Thank you. Thank you very much to Chris Mitchell from IPC, and of course to Timon Rubon from Luminovo. So thank you all for taking part, and thank you to our audience for watching.
Kaizen is the leading global supplier of award-winning cleaning chemistries for electronics assembly operations. Whether you are cleaning stencils or final assemblies, our global team of cleaning experts is there to help you succeed. Want to know more? Stop by our booth or visit kaizen.com.
For micro dispensing, there is one product line that is proven and trusted by manufacturers in semiconductor packaging, electronics assembly, medical device, and electromechanical assembly the world over. DL Technology, superior pumps and needles for the finer things in life.
Video proudly sponsored by Kyoyoung Technology.